Why do avoidants start paying attention to you the moment you stop trying to get their attention? There's something backwards about how avoidants work. The more you want their attention, the less interested they become. The more you chase, the faster they run. It's like trying to catch your own shadow. The harder you try, the more impossible it gets. Most people make the mistake of thinking they need to do more to get an avoidant's attention. Send more texts, be more available, show more interest, prove their worth through effort and persistence. This approach fails spectacularly. Avoidants are wired to value what they can't easily have and lose interest in what comes too easily. When you chase them, you're handing them everything they're trying to avoid: certainty, emotional intensity, and someone who needs them. But there are specific behaviors that work in reverse. Silent moves that trigger their curiosity instead of their defense mechanisms. Natural behaviors that create the exact psychological conditions avoidants find irresistible. So what's the first behavior that completely shifts how an avoidant sees you? The first behavior that captures an avoidant's attention happens when you become genuinely busy with your own life. Not fake busy, actually busy. Not performing busyness to make them jealous, but creating a life so interesting that their presence becomes a nice addition rather than a necessity. Think about how different this feels from someone who's always available. When every text gets an immediate response, when every invitation gets accepted, when someone's schedule seems to revolve around your availability, that predictability becomes boring fast for an avoidant. But when someone has their own projects, goals, friends, and interests that genuinely consume their time and energy, something shifts. Suddenly you're not chasing their attention because you're genuinely focused elsewhere. Your responses come when you have time, not when they demand it. Your availability becomes limited by your actual life, not by games or strategies. This creates a psychological scarcity that avoidants find intriguing. Instead of being the center of your universe, they become one element in a fuller, richer life. Instead of feeling pressured by your constant focus, they start wondering why they're not getting more of it. The key is authenticity. You can't fake having an interesting life. You have to actually build one. Take up hobbies you're genuinely excited about. Pursue goals that matter to you personally. Cultivate friendships that fulfill you independently of any romantic relationship. Create a version of yourself that you enjoy being, with or without anyone else's attention. When your busyness comes from genuine engagement with your own life, it shows. There's an energy and enthusiasm that can't be manufactured. You're not declining their invitations to prove a point. You're declining because you have something equally or more interesting to do. This shift changes the entire dynamic. Instead of them being the interesting one that you're trying to access, you become the interesting one whose time feels valuable and limited. Instead of wondering why they're not more available to you, they start wondering why you're not more available to them. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The second behavior that draws avoidant attention is never being emotionally reactive to their hot and cold behavior. This means responding with the same energy they give you, but without the emotional charge that usually comes with feeling jerked around by someone's inconsistency. Avoidants test people constantly, often without realizing it. They'll be warm and engaging one day, distant and unavailable the next. They're not necessarily trying to hurt you. They're trying to see how much of their emotional inconsistency you'll tolerate before you either become clingy or give up entirely. Most people fail this test by becoming emotional about the inconsistency. They get hurt when the avoidant pulls back. They get excited when the avoidant comes forward. They try to address the hot and cold pattern directly, asking what's wrong or trying to create more consistency through conversation. These reactions tell the avoidant that they have emotional power over you, that your mood depends on their mood, that your security depends on their behavior. This kind of emotional dependence is exactly what triggers their flight response. But when you respond to their warmth with equal warmth and their distance with equal distance, without any emotional drama about the inconsistency, something different happens. You're not trying to control their emotional temperature, you're simply matching it. This creates a mirror effect that many avoidants haven't experienced before. Usually, their hot and cold behavior creates emotional reactions in others that they can then respond to. But when you simply reflect their energy back without adding emotional intensity, they lose their familiar dynamic. Your consistent emotional stability becomes more interesting than the chaos they're used to creating. Instead of you being the one who's affected by their behavior, they start being affected by your lack of reaction to their behavior. This doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means being genuinely unbothered by their inconsistency because you have enough going on in your own life that their emotional availability doesn't determine your emotional state. But wait, there's a third move that's even more subtle and powerful. The third move that captures avoidant attention is sharing your life selectively rather than completely. This means letting them into certain parts of your world while keeping other parts private, not out of secrecy, but out of natural boundaries and personal space. Most people make the mistake of thinking that intimacy means total transparency. They share every thought, every experience, every detail of their day in an attempt to create closeness. With avoidance, this approach backfires because it eliminates mystery and can feel overwhelming. Avoidants are drawn to people who have depth that can't be fully accessed immediately. They want to discover things about you gradually rather than having everything revealed at once. When you share selectively, you're not being manipulative. You're maintaining the natural pace of getting to know someone that avoidants find comfortable. This might mean talking about your work project, but not your work drama. Sharing your excitement about a trip you're planning, but not every detail of the planning process. Mentioning a friend's situation that affected you, but not every friendship dynamic in your life. The principle is simple. Give them enough to stay interested and connected, but not so much that they feel overwhelmed by the intensity of your inner world. Let intimacy develop naturally rather than forcing it through oversharing. This approach respects their need for emotional space while still maintaining connection. You're not withholding information to create artificial mystery. You're sharing at a pace that feels sustainable for both of you. When avoidants feel like they're discovering you gradually rather than being hit with everything at once, they become more curious about what else there is to learn. Instead of feeling like they already know everything about you, they start wondering what other layers you might have. And then comes number 4. This one might surprise you. The fourth behavior that draws avoidant attention is having other people naturally competing for your time and energy. This isn't about making them jealous artificially. It's about being genuinely popular and sought after because you're living an engaging life. Social proof matters enormously to avoidants, though they'd never admit it. When they see that other people value your company, find you interesting, and want your attention, it triggers a competitive instinct they didn't know they had. But there's a crucial difference between natural social proof and manufactured drama. Natural social proof comes from actually being someone people enjoy being around. You have friends who invite you places, colleagues who seek your input, family members who genuinely want to spend time with you, people who text you just to share something funny or interesting. This kind of organic social life creates a gentle pressure that avoidants find compelling. You're not trying to make them jealous, you're just genuinely in demand because you're good company. Your calendar fills up naturally because people enjoy your presence. When an avoidant sees that they're not the only person who finds you worth knowing, it changes their perception of your value. Instead of being someone who's available whenever they decide to pay attention, you become someone whose attention is sought after by multiple people. This scarcity creates urgency. If they want access to your time and energy, they need to actually make an effort rather than expecting you to always be available when they finally decide they want company. The key is authenticity. You can't fake having multiple people who genuinely enjoy your company. You have to actually be someone worth knowing. This means developing your personality, your interests, your sense of humor, and your ability to contribute positively to other people's lives. When your social proof is real, it shows. There's a natural confidence that comes from knowing you're genuinely liked and valued by the people in your life. This confidence is attractive to everyone, but especially to avoidants who are drawn to self-sufficiency and independence. Now we're getting to the really strategic stuff. The fifth move that captures avoidant attention is mirroring their energy without becoming cold yourself. This means matching their level of investment and availability while maintaining your own warmth and openness. Think of it like a dance where you follow their lead without losing your own style. If they text once a day, you text once a day. If they make plans a week in advance, you make plans a week in advance. If they share personal information gradually, you share personal information gradually. This mirroring isn't about playing games or withholding affection. It's about respecting their pace and not overwhelming them with more intensity than they're offering. When someone consistently gives more energy than you're giving back, it can feel suffocating to an avoidant. But when you match their energy level, something interesting happens. They lose the familiar dynamic where they're the one being pursued. Instead of feeling pressured by your higher investment, they start wondering why you're not more invested than they are. Many avoidants are used to being the one who cares less in their relationships. Your equal energy level challenges this pattern without creating conflict. You're not demanding more from them, but you're also not giving more than you're receiving. This balance creates a sense of equality that many avoidants haven't experienced before. Instead of feeling like they're being chased or like they have all the power, they start feeling like they're in a mutual exchange where both people are contributing equally. The psychological effect is subtle but powerful. When they realize they might need to increase their investment to maintain your interest, they start thinking about you differently. Instead of taking your attention for granted, they begin to value it. Your consistent warmth prevents this from becoming a cold war of emotional withholding. You're not matching their energy to punish them or to create distance. You're matching it to create balance and sustainability in the connection. Here's number 6, and this one really flips the script. The sixth behavior that draws avoidant attention is being the one who ends conversations first, at least some of the time. This doesn't mean cutting people off rudely or creating artificial scarcity. It means having enough going on in your life that you naturally have other things to do. Most people, when they're interested in an avoidant, will stretch conversations as long as possible. They'll keep texting until the avoidant stops responding. They'll stay on phone calls until the avoidant says they need to go. They'll extend dates until the avoidant suggests ending them. This pattern teaches the avoidant that they control the length and intensity of your interactions. They get used to being the one who decides when things end, which puts them in a position of power that can become boring over time. But when you occasionally end conversations while they're still engaged, something shifts. Maybe you have dinner plans with friends. Maybe you have an early morning and need sleep. Maybe you have work to finish or a hobby to pursue. These aren't excuses, they're real commitments to your own life that sometimes take priority over extending a conversation. When you say, "I need to go, but this was great, talk soon," you're demonstrating that your time has boundaries and competing priorities. This creates a subtle psychological shift. Instead of them controlling the pace and duration of your interactions, you share that control. Instead of them always being the one who's ready to end things first, sometimes you are. The effect is that they start wanting to extend conversations when you need to end them. They begin to value the time they have with you more because they can't always count on having as much as they want. This approach requires genuine time management rather than artificial scarcity. You can't fake having other commitments. You need to actually have a life full enough that sometimes other priorities compete with extended conversations. And finally, the most powerful one of all. The seventh and most powerful behavior that captures avoidant attention is thriving independently while remaining selectively open to connection. This is the paradox that avoidants find irresistible. Someone who clearly doesn't need them but might want them. This means building a life that's genuinely fulfilling on its own. You have goals you're excited about, friendships that sustain you, hobbies that engage you, a sense of purpose that motivates you. Your happiness doesn't depend on any one person's attention or affection, but you're not closed off to connection. When the right person shows up with genuine interest and effort, you're open to exploring what might develop. You're not desperate for relationship, but you're not opposed to it either. This combination is incredibly attractive to avoidants because it eliminates their two biggest fears, being needed too much and being rejected for their emotional limitations. You don't need them, so they don't feel pressured, but you're open to them so they don't feel rejected. Your independence gives them space to be themselves without worrying about disappointing you or living up to expectations they can't meet. Your openness gives them permission to show interest without feeling like they're walking into an emotional trap. This balance is difficult to achieve and impossible to fake. You can't pretend to be independently happy if you're not. You can't fake being open to connection if you're actually desperate for it. The authenticity of your emotional state shows through in countless small ways. When avoidants encounter someone who genuinely embodies this paradox, it challenges their assumptions about relationships. They're used to people who either need them too much or reject them for not being emotionally available enough. But someone who's genuinely fine either way presents a completely different dynamic. Your thriving independence becomes proof that connection with you would be a choice rather than a necessity. Your selective openness suggests that if they earned your interest, it would be because you wanted them specifically, not because you needed anyone. Understanding why these behaviors work reveals something important about avoidant psychology. Avoidants are drawn to what they perceive as valuable, independent, and slightly out of reach. They lose interest in what feels needy, available, or emotionally demanding. When you naturally embody the qualities that attract them, independence, mystery, social value, emotional stability, and selective availability, you're not manipulating them. You're simply being the kind of person they find genuinely interesting. The key to all of these approaches is authenticity. You can't fake being genuinely busy, emotionally stable, socially popular, or independently happy. You have to actually develop these qualities in yourself, which benefits you regardless of whether any particular avoidant pays attention. These behaviors work because they create the psychological conditions that avoidants find comfortable and intriguing: space to be themselves, mystery to explore, value to appreciate, and choice rather than pressure. Have you noticed any of these behaviors naturally drawing more attention from avoidants in your life? Drop a comment about which approach feels most authentic to who you are. If this helped you understand what actually attracts avoidant attention, like this video and subscribe for more insights about creating healthy relationship dynamics. Thanks for watching.